This is the 5th video in our series of how to read music. So far, we learned about note value, what they look like. We learned about time signature. And we also learned about subdivisions. We went over briefly how to count them. And in video number 4 and 5, we learned how to count them in time. So how to feel the subdivisions. Because when you're reading, everything has to be read in time. When we completed the second video, at the very end of the second video, we looked at this one page of bars of rhythms that are in 3/4 time. We understood the math that's involved. We saw how each one of these bars are in fact in 3/4 time. Now our goal is not only to understand the math, but to actually read and play music when we see it on paper, or even to write it out ourselves. So in order to do this, we have to learn how to count the subdivisions, and that's what this page is about. It's the 4 main rules of counting. First rule, the pulse always gets the count, and what I mean by that is the number 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So if I'm in a time signature of 3/16, it means that there are 3/16 notes in each bar, the value of 3/16 notes. So 16th notes would be counted 1, 2, 3. If I'm in a time signature of 2/8, then that's 2 eighth notes per bar. So 8th notes would be counted 1, 2. So here we go. First rule, the pulse always gets the count, and the time signature determines what that is. The second rule, when you subdivide the pulse into 2 equal parts, it's counted 1 and. The third rule, when you subdivide the pulse into 3 equal parts, it's counted 1 triplet. And the fourth rule, when you subdivide the pulse into 4 equal parts, it's counted 1 E and A. We could subdivide the pulse into smaller, 5 parts or 6 parts or whatever, but for now 1 through 4 is just fine. Now some examples. This page here is in 2/4 time signature, which means 2 quarter notes per bar. So according to our first rule, quarter notes are the pulse, so they are counted by the number 1, 2, 1, 2. Our second line here corresponds to the second rule of counting. When you subdivide the pulse into 2 equal parts, it's counted 1 and. I subdivided each quarter note into 2 eighth notes. Eighth notes would be counted 1 and 2 and, 1 and 2 and. This line here corresponds to the third rule. If I subdivide the pulse into 3 equal parts, it's counted 1 triplet. So here we have something that we did not do yet. That's why you'll notice the math is a little bit funny here. It says that 3 eighth notes equal a quarter note. Well, that's not true. We know from our pizza pie diagram that 2 eighth notes equal the quarter note. However, this is actually written correctly. It's something that's known as an artificial grouping, which we will get into on a later video. So for now, just take my word for it that this is written correctly. I'm breaking a pulse into 3 equal parts. The rule says count 1 triplet. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet. Each pulse broken into 3 parts. 1 triplet, 2 triplet. And the fourth rule, we take the pulse and break it into 4 equal parts. 4/16 equal the value of a quarter note. So it's counted 1 E and 2 E and according to the fourth rule of counting. This page, same thing, different time signature. Now we're in 2/2, which means 2 half notes. So according to the first rule, half notes are the pulse, so half notes are counted 1, 2. Because of that, quarter notes, 2 quarter notes, equal the value of a half note. So I'm subdividing the pulse into 2 equal parts. The quarter notes are counted 1 and 2 and. On this line, again, artificial grouping, but I'm subdividing the pulse into 3 equal parts. They are counted 1 triplet, 2 triplet, according to rule number 3. And finally, rule number 4, we're taking the half notes, pulse, and we're dividing them into 4 equal parts. 4 eighth notes equal the value of a half note. Therefore, 8 notes are counted 1 E and a, 2 E and a. On this page, the same principles, but unlike on these 2 pages where each bar was subdivided the same way throughout the bar, subdivided in 2 parts here and here, 3 parts here and here, 4 parts here and here. Here we're mixing up the subdivisions. So the first line is just the pulse. The second line, I have the pulse and then subdividing into 2 parts. Here, it's pulse, subdividing into 3 parts, pulse, 4 parts. Here we have 4 parts, 4 parts, 4 parts, and 4 parts again. So let's very slowly look at this and read it. First bar, the pulse in 2/4 time, 1, 2. The second bar, still quarter notes, but the first one is a quarter note, but the second one is a quarter rest. You don't play on the rest. So the second bar is played 1, 2. The third bar, second line, first bar here, is 1, 2, and, because we subdivided the second pulse into 2 equal parts, 2 eighth notes. And this bar here, we're playing the pulse on the 1, and then the second pulse is divided into 2 eighths, but the first one is an eighth rest, so you don't play that. So this bar here is played 1, 2, and. We still have to count the 2 and, but we're not playing on the 2. Here, 1, 2, triplet, 1, 2, triplet. Here, 1, 2, E and a, 1, 2, E and a. Notice I didn't play on this, on the 2, on the second, because it's a 16th rest. So, to repeat that line, 1, 2, E and a, 1, 2, E and a. On the last line, I broke each pulse into 4 parts. The first part, the first pulse, I'm playing each one of the 4 parts. The second pulse, I'm resting on the second count. So, this bar here is played 1 E and a, 2 E and a. I still have to count the E, but you don't play it because it's a 16th rest. And this bar here, I'm just showing you that these 16ths can be written this way. They don't all have to be connected. The only thing that matters is that when you look at each note, each one has 2 tails, and the same here. So we still have 1 E and a, but now for the 2 E and a, the first note, which is an 8th note, that takes up 2 16ths. So we're not going to play the E, we're only playing 2 E. The 8th note takes up those 2 16ths. So we're playing 2 E and a. So this whole bar goes 1 E and a, 2 E and a. This part here might be a little confusing. You have to go back to the very first exercise, the very first video, where we're talking about the value of notes and how in this case the 8th note equals the value of 2 16ths, and then we have the other 2 16ths to complete the 4 16ths. We're going to start on our next video actually reading lines of music, bars of music, and some of them might be a little bit more detailed, but right now you have a good understanding of the value of the notes, how they relate to each other, and how to count them. Good luck, and I will see you on the next video.